and I welcome
Yes, sir.
all
Sorry.
the people who have joined and who will be joining. At the same time, I welcome the speaker, His Grace Shubh Vilas Prabhuji. Nina has, in a very brief introduction, made us aware the importance of spirituality and its relation to health. Doctors, as we all know, we are first human beings and then we have qualified to be professionals. So we have to take care of our own health also. Sometimes patients express in such words that, "काय doctor तुम्ही पण आजारी पडता? You are also sick," as if we are not human beings. So over to you, Meena, for a lovely discourse by Shubha Vilas Prabhuji today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your guidance, for your support. You're always there for us. Thank you very much, sir. Would request now Dr. Sunita Shirsagar, Madam, the co-chairperson of the Spiritual Subcommittee, to please introduce the speaker. Over to you, Madam.
Thank, yeah, thank you, Meena. Respected Honorable President of IMA Maharashtra State, Dr. Pingle, our Honorary Secretary, Dr. Pate, and on behalf of Indian Medical Association, Maharashtra State, I welcome His Grace Prabhu Shubh Vilas from ISKCON. We will not like to come between him and the eager audience, but I wish to briefly introduce him. Shubh Vilas Prabhu is an internationally acclaimed and most sought after speaker. Academically, he holds a degree in electronic engineering and law with specialization in patent law. After his brief stint in corporate world, he chose to move away from the mainstream society to live a life of contemplation, putting his energies into deep studies and interpretation of Vedic scriptures, and subsequently went on to become a monk and a spiritual seeker. With more than a decade of experience of motivational speaking and corporate training, with over 100 clients worldwide, he, he is an inspirational orator, a motivational speaker, a storyteller, and a lifestyle coach. The objective of his life is to spread joy and knowledge of living based on the purity of scriptures, making the scriptures not only understandable but also practical and inspiring everyone to live a purpose driven and meaningful life. Shubh Vilas Prabhu is a bestseller author and he has authored number of inspirational books for adults as well as children. Writing books is an extension of his deep sense of responsibility towards the society and the benefits it can derive from understanding the ancient wisdom and literature in its true essence. After his extensive research in Valmiki Ramayana, Kamba Ramayana, and Ramcharitmanas, he has done a monumental task of rewriting series of Ramayana as a game of life that has brought the epic out of the closet and revealed the depth of learning hidden inside. He has written the Ramayana in such a simple and very aptly explained how we can relate the incidences in Ramayana to a day-to-day living. He has also done a PhD in Ramayana. Apart from corporate sector, his target audience is the youth. He travels across the globe to various countries to connect with them through various educational institutions, counseling and guiding students in area of leadership, relationships, overcoming failures, stress management, and etc. He also holds sessions called Prerna for boys from the age group of 13 to 25 in ISKCON Chapati Temple, and his sessions are always jam packed. He was recently invited to the University of Massachusetts, MIT in Boston, to attend a corporate, and he's always invited to corporate houses like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Samsung, etc. He is then faculty in IIM Ranchi and IIM Indore. He regularly conducts workshops for the HRD ministry, so here his audience is high-notch bureaucrats and top-ranking officials. He was also invited to give a talk to the nuclear scientists in DRDO, that is Defense Research Development and Organization. Over and above all, this he is a wonderful human being very humble, very caring, compassionate, and friendly, and is always easily approachable and easily accessible. Being very accessible and approachable, he has a unique ability to see things from a practical perspective applied with scriptural vision, making scriptures useful in everyone's life and creating life lessons that lead to self-development roadmaps. So, Prabhuji, once again, with my respectful obeisances to you, and we again welcome you on behalf of everyone present here to take the stage and please share your wisdom. Over to Vilas Prabhuji.
Thank you very much. Very grateful and honored to be here on this August gathering and platform of IMA. Very, very grateful to the management of IMA for having invited me here, specifically to Dr. Pingle sir, Bina ma'am, Dr. Sunita, and for all the members of management in IMA. It is an honor and pleasure to be here on this platform once again. I think I was with many of you all a couple of years back when I spoke in Mumbai. I'm just going to share a presentation. So I'm going to speak for about an hour or so, and then we will have question answers and discussions. Just offer a small prayer and begin. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutaha Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Shude Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Prapasandogye Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Rama Rama Hare Hare. I've been asked to speak on the subject matter of spirituality and health. So I'm going to first give you all a very interesting background of how you look at the idea of balancing all aspects of life. So there is a very interesting verse in the Gita which says Yuktahara Viharasya Yukta Chetasa. So this verse, it actually talks about how one needs to have a balance in every aspect of life. When we say every aspect, what does it mean? It talks about work, recreation, sleep, eating, etc. This idea of balance is what is called yoga. The word yoga has many, many meanings. And one of the connotations of the word yoga is the idea of balance. Anything which seems to be going in one direction or leaning towards one direction is not exactly the best way to live life. There was a time when I used to do corporate events, and I would actually pass on a sheet to everyone, where the sheet would have a circle, and this circle would have many spokes, and each spoke represents one aspect of your life: health, family, friends, spirit, work, etc. And in a scale of 0 to 100, I would ask people, please put a particular number on how much effort you put in that particular aspect of life. And invariably, at least in the corporate world, what I have found is that invariably everyone would put the highest number for the work aspect. That means really, really putting so much effort in work. And some people would put so much effort that actually that work would go outside that circle also, you know. So if you actually see, our life is not very balanced. The question is, how do you bring balance to your life? Which is what the whole discussion is going to be today. And in the process of this discussion, you will get a good idea of what it means to have a balance between spirituality and health, how spirituality affects health. Let me bring you to the context of what spirituality and health is by making one statement. Spirituality is your state of mind. Spirituality is not just ritualistic things. A lot of people think spirituality means a lot of rituals. Actually, spirituality is not really rituals. It's much, much more. It is the spirit with which you live your life. It is the thought process with which you live your life. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. How do you live your life in a way that is spiritually elevated in its consciousness and its being? Having given that background, let me begin the discussion today. Albert Einstein once said that life is like riding a bicycle. In order to keep the right balance, you have to keep moving. A lot of people take this very seriously. We are living in a world that is full of movement. The pace is much faster than before. We live in a mobile society. We travel much faster. We travel much further. And we're so obsessed with what we're doing and the kind of life that we live that somehow we feel that in order to keep the balance, you have to keep moving. You know, if you actually ride a cycle, and have you ever driven a cycle in one place? You can't. You will fall, you know, of course. If it is on a stand or something, that's a different story. But otherwise, you can't just stand in one place and keep the balance on the cycle. You will fall one of the sides. Similarly, a lot of people actually think that the only way to maintain balance in life is keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And we live in a very fast-paced world that forces us to move. And places like Mumbai are the worst. You know, you can't sit for 5 minutes in one place. The city makes you run so much, isn't it? So in a fast-paced life like we live, how do you attain any form of balance? There are 4 aspects to what balance is. There is PQ, which is physical quotient. It talks about diet, exercise, sleep, etc. Then there is EQ, which is emotional quotient. It's about belongingness, the feeling of being loved and wanting to love. The third need of every human being is intellectual quotient, the need to develop and grow. And finally, the 4th need is spiritual quotient, which stands for the need to have a real sense of identity, purpose in life, living as a co-worker with God. So these are the 4 needs of every human being. And when these 4 needs are balanced, that human being actually lives a very balanced and healthy life. There is a disease, I don't know how many of you all know this as doctors, I'm sure many of you would have even come across patients with this disease called Macrodactyly. This disease is such that one limb of your body grows huge. Like one thumb can grow big, only the head can grow big, only the ears can grow big, you know. It's called macrodactyly. Obviously, now anybody who has macrodactyly looks very different from regular human beings. Now, which essentially means one aspect of his life has grown a lot, while other aspects have remained small. In one sense, all of us suffer macrodactyly. One aspect we have focused on heavily. A lot of people in this world focus on the physical, the way they look so much, so that they look very beautiful. But all other aspects of the life are suffering. Or there might be somebody who is focusing very heavily on IQ, intellectual development, but his other aspects of life are suffering. So whenever you focus on one aspect of life and neglect the other aspects of life, it leads to a disbalance. In our natural state, we live very happily. A fish doesn't struggle to swim. A bird doesn't struggle to fly. A cuckoo doesn't struggle to sing. Similarly, if we reach our innate natural state, we will be happy and we'll have a remarkable life. But when we move away from the state of balance, we live a very unhappy life and we live a very miserable life. And therefore, the idea of finding the right kind of balance is something that is very internal and something that is very, very innate to us. Anyone who lives a life of balance is someone who actually is marveled by the world. The world appreciates such a person. The world loves such people. The world looks forward to such people as examples for society. Of course, Indians are very expert in problem solving, isn't it? India is one place where you find maximum problem solvers. Almost 50 to 60% of the software engineers across the world who are really good and successful are from India. So people in India have the patience to solve problems. Problems require a lot of patience. And when we are and the greatest problem of life is the problem of finding the right balance. So today we're going to get into a very deep discussion on problem solving, specifically with regards to finding the right kind of balance in our personal life. Let me begin with the story. There were 4 boys that lived in a building, in an apartment which was 100-storied apartment. Really, and they lived on the 100th floor of the building. So these 4 boys, one day they reached their building and they found out that there is no, the elevator is not functioning. So when they found that the elevator is not functioning, they were shocked. I mean, imagine you're living on the 100th floor of a building and your lift is not working. So they decided anyway we have to climb to our house, might as well just inspire each other by telling some stories. So they began to tell stories to each other and they reached the 100th floor of the building. And finally, somehow after so much struggle, when they reached the 100th floor of the building, there they found out that they left the key to the house below. Imagine reaching so high up and then finding out that the key to the door is missing. We are all like these boys. We are all trying to climb the ladder of success. As doctors, I'm sure each one of us is trying our best to climb to the ladder of success. But you know what the problem is? When we reach the top of the ladder of success, that is when we realize that the key to happiness is missing. How many people we come across in life who have everything possible, but they are miserable. They have everything that what you define as a successful person or a successful doctor, but yet they feel something is missing in life. So the question is, what is the definition of success? What is success? Once I was in a college and I was speaking to hundreds of young boys and girls. And I asked them this question: can you define success? And different youngsters gave different answers. And one young man, he got up and he said, in my understanding, success means spending as much money as I want in buying anything I want. That was his definition of success. I said, wow, what a definition. So a lot of people think that success is connected with charisma. A lot of people think success is connected to the number of cars you have. Success is connected to the number of gadgets you have. Success is connected to the number of people that are working under you or what your bank account says, things like that. But the problem with this kind of a definition of success is that this definition of success changes with time. Let me explain what I mean by this with a small story. When I was small, we used to have a group of young boys playing together, different games. But there was one little boy who was very naughty and he didn't like to lose any game. So he would do something very naughty. Whenever he would realize he's going to lose a game, you know what he would do? He would throw everything and say, let's start again. Suppose he's playing a game of chess. Suddenly you throw all the coins and he'll say, no, let's start again. Like a carom game. You just throw everything and say, let's start again. This boy never lost. Why? Because he never allowed anybody else to win. He kept changing the game whenever he felt he's going to lose. Life is exactly like this in one sense. A lot of people think that success means having a E-class Mercedes Benz, and they work so hard to accumulate enough money to buy a E-class Mercedes Benz, and they do buy it. But you know what the problem is? The day you buy the E-class Mercedes Benz, that very day a new car gets launched in the market, and now the definition of success has changed. Suddenly having the E-class Mercedes Benz is no more the success symbol. Now there's a new car come, and only when you get that new car you'll be successful. The definition of success changes as soon as you achieve it. This is what is called as public victory. Public victory essentially means what the world thinks about you. Public victory essentially means what the society thinks you are. If you have more cars, if you have more houses, if you have more bank balance, then the world thinks you are successful. This is the first definition of success that we are seeing today. Let's go deeper and really try to understand whether this definition of success is the only definition. Is there something more deeper? There's a very interesting quote that says, how rich you are is indicated by how many things you have that money can't buy. Let me repeat this. It says how rich you are is indicated by how many things you have that money can't buy. Now, money can buy a lot of things. It can buy cars, it can buy gadgets, it can buy houses, it can buy so many things. But there are many things that money can't buy. Relationships, love, friendship, contentment, satisfaction, happiness. These are things that money can't buy. The idea of happiness is always connected with something much deeper than what external things exist. To understand how spirituality perceives happiness and success, let me share with you a very interesting shloka from the Bhagavad Gita. And this shloka from the Gita will help us understand what really the definition of happiness is. where it lies and where it does not lie. People somehow always have a wrong equation of happiness. There are only two places in the world where you get unlimited happiness. Which are the two places where you get unlimited happiness? First is in the spiritual world, and second is in the imagination. Everywhere else, you get limited happiness only. Everywhere else, there is a limited extent of what happiness is. Like, say, for example, you buy a brand new car, you go to a Porsche showroom, and you see these, or you go to these Rolls Royce showrooms, and you see these sparkling cars, beautiful cars. As long as you see them on the show window, it seems amazing. You just start thinking that wish I had this car. But you ask all those people who actually have this car, they'll tell you what the real problem is. The problem is, as soon as you buy the car, there are some stark realities that come into picture. You have a dazzling, extremely costly car. How do you drive it in the streets of Mumbai? It's so scary with the kind of vehicles that move in Mumbai and the kind of people that drive totally irresponsibly. And when you drive a car that is so costly, you are even scared to get out of your parking lot. Why? Because anyone can come from any direction and bang into you. Not even your fault, And such a huge, costly car gets damaged. And more than that, today, the greatest problem in places like Mumbai is where do you park? Even if you have a huge car, parking places are impossible to get, literally. Such a nightmare to find a parking spot. And even if you somehow find the parking spot, when you come back, there is no guarantee your car will actually be there. Somebody might have towed it away, somebody might have stolen it away. And even if the car is not stolen, there is no guarantee the tires will be there. Nowadays, thieves, they don't steal cars. They take 4 tires away. That's all. Your car is standing there only. What will you do with a car that has no tires? So as long as happiness is on the billboards, it looks amazing. When you look at these flashy billboards, you see, wow. But in every billboard which advertises happiness, there's a small asterisk marks which says conditions apply. We don't see these asterisk marks because we're looking at the big billboard over there, right? But that's how life is. Young boys and girls, when they think about marriage, they're so excited. They're so enthusiastic to get married. But in reality, conditions apply. As soon as they get married, the reality dawns. It's something else. Nothing what you really expected. So the idea is that what really is happiness? Let me share with you a very interesting sloka, a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which defines happiness. This verse says, Yehi samsparsha jabhoga dukkha yoneva evate. It begins with this. Yehi samsparsha jabhoga. So here, Krishna is explaining what is not the source of happiness. So let's decode this verse and try to understand it. The word sparsha means touch. When something touches something else, it's called sparsha. And what is the meaning of the word sparsha ja bhoga? Ja means janma. Janma means birth. Bhoga means happiness, enjoyment. And sparsha ja bhoga, yehi samsparsha ja bhoga means what? Happiness that arises from touch. What do you mean by happiness that arises from touch? There are many things that gives us pleasure, isn't it? When senses come in touch with sense objects, it leads to great pleasure. When your ears come across very pleasant music, it makes you happy. That's a touch. When your nose smells something fragrant, it makes you so happy. That's a touch. When your eyes see something beautiful, it makes you happy. That's a touch. When your tongue tastes something pleasant, it makes you happy. That's a touch. And when your skin touches something soft and silky, it makes you happy. That's a touch. So this is called as Yehi Samsparshaja Yoga. The first type of happiness that we get in this world is happiness that comes when senses come in touch with sense objects. All of us have experienced this, isn't it? All of us have experienced the pleasure of vada pav. Mumbai, vada pav. There are people who travel 35 kilometers to eat one vada pav. Why? The tongue is dragging them. They've experienced the touch, the pleasure of the tongue. And that experience keeps bringing them again and again and again to experience it. Krishna, he says, there's a problem with such a type of happiness. What does Krishna say? He says, Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yoneva evate. He says that this pleasure that comes when senses come in touch with sense objects leads to misery later. Dukkha yoneva evate. Dukkha means misery. Yoneva evate means it becomes a source of misery later. Now, why does happiness that arises out of senses coming in touch with sense objects become a source of misery later? The reason Krishna gives, he says, Adi Antavanta Kaunteya. This is the reason. There are three reasons why happiness in this world that arises out of things doesn't last and it ends up frustrating us. The first reason is material things have a beginning and an end. Everything in this world has a beginning and an end. There is an end to all things that cause pleasure. There is an end to all things that give us pleasure. I'm sure you've heard of Japanese people. They don't build houses made of cement and bricks. They make houses made of wood. Why? Because they know very well that these houses, earthquakes can come anytime and the houses break. No point in constructing a permanent house when we know that in a few years there's going to be an earthquake and it will anyway collapse. Everything in this world has a beginning and an end. There is a beginning and end to every experience we have in this world. Like say, for example, if somebody gives you a gulab jamun, and it's a very tasty and a very, very beautiful looking gulab jamun, and you bring it and you take one bite of the gulab jamun. The moment you take that one bite of the gulab jamun, it floods your mouth with so much happiness, isn't it? It's a great experience of euphoria and joy. Now, the second bite of the same gulab jamun, does it taste the same as the first bite? No. The taste has already come down a little bit. The third bite of the gulab jamun definitely doesn't taste like the first bite. And by the time the gulab jamun is finished, your experience of joy has also decreased quite a bit. Now, if you eat a second gulab jamun, does the first bite of the second gulab jamun taste same as the first bite of the first gulab jamun? Not at all. It's much lesser. And suppose you eat 10 gulab jamuns at a stretch. By the time you're eating the 10th gulab jamun, you're already suffering. You're miserable. Because the 10th gulab jamun makes you so nauseous. You can't eat so much. What begins as pleasure ends as pain. When a relationship begins, there is so much joy and excitement. But when the same relationship comes to an end, it is so much misery and pain. For those who have Saturday, Sunday off, Friday evening is excitement because Saturday, Sunday is going to be a holiday. Monday morning is misery because again, the week is going to start. So everything has a beginning and an end. Adi Antavanta Kaunteya. That's what Krishna says. There's a beginning, it has an end. Adi and Anta. And then The next thing Krishna speaks about is there will always be someone or something specifically there to make your experience of happiness spoiled. There will always be something or someone to spoil our pleasure. Like, for example, um, there was a young man who saved a lot of money to go on a holiday to the Hawaii Islands. He spent a huge amount of money getting a plane ticket to go to the Hawaii Islands. And then he booked a first class hotel there in Hawaii Islands, touching the beach. And as soon as he reached there, he wanted to make the best use of these few days that he is going to spend there. He dropped his luggage, ran to the beach with great excitement. As soon as he stepped on the beach, the sand of the beach, it was burning hot, so hot he can't even imagine. He just couldn't handle the heat of the sand. He ran towards the water, thinking he'll jump into the water and be happy. When he reached the water, there was a huge board there that said, "Swimming not allowed, sharks here." Now, this guy was so frustrated. He couldn't stay on the land, it was too hot. He couldn't go inside the water, it was dangerous. And he thought, I don't want to go back to the hotel room and waste my holiday. I want to find a place here. He found a tree under which there was some shade. He went and sat under the tree, thinking that I'll just spend my holiday here under this tree. When he sat under the tree, in a few minutes, he saw there were so many scorpions all around him. And this guy was frustrated. The nature of this world is that it will always checkmate you. Somehow it will checkmate you. You try your best to be happy, something or the other will come to make your experience of happiness miserable. There was a guy I met a couple of years back, and we were talking about life, and he was telling me about how his life is amazing. He had the best of everything possible. He had the best house, the best job, the best boss, the best salary, the best car, the best wife, the best children, the best of everything. I was like sitting for about half an hour, hearing him out, and I was amazed how everything in his life is just perfect. And just when I was wondering whether Gita is really right about the philosophy that we're just discussing, he suddenly said, "But." And then I knew what was coming next was something interesting. He said, "But my mother-in-law." And then he went on to say how everything in his life is useless because of this one person that exists in his life. And he went on to complain about hundreds and thousands of things that are not right because his mother-in-law is there in his life. Each one of us have at least someone who is there to make our experience of life miserable. Just like in football, there's always one person who is trying to guard another player, right? There's always somebody who's marking you. Similarly, the way life is designed is there will be someone who is specifically appointed to make your experience of life miserable. That is the second reason. So the first reason is material things have a beginning and end. Second reason is there will be something or someone who's there to spoil our pleasure. Third, the contact of the senses with the sense objects can never reach the heart. It can at maximum reach the mind, but it can never reach deep into the heart. Satisfaction and fulfillment can only come when the heart experiences it. And the heart experiences something very powerful. The primary need of the heart is to love and to be loved. Where is my happiness? So when your happiness is connected with external things, it is not going to really give you something that is lasting. And therefore, Krishna recommends something very nice. He says, "Na teshu ramate buddha." So what is the meaning of "na teshu ramate buddha"? So what he says is, "Yei samsparsha jaboga dukkha yoneva evate adi antavanta kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha." means look for that pleasure within yourself. Don't look for it in external things. What does it mean? What does it mean that look for it inside and don't look for it outside? Let me explain to you with the help of two words in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, Sanskrit is a very interesting language. And the vocabulary of Sanskrit is so vast and so huge. The word happiness in English has two different ways of addressing it in Sanskrit. One is called Sukha and second is called Ananda. What is the difference between Sukha and Ananda? Let's first look at what is Sukha. Sukha, to define what is Sukha, let me give you a simple definition. Sukha is a gap between two miseries. Right now I'm miserable. After some time I'm going to be miserable. The gap between the two miseries is called Sukha or happiness. Like say for example, in the olden times, there used to be these kings who would give punishment to prisoners. And the way they would punish was, they would catch hold of the neck of the prisoner, dunk him into the water, and hold him inside for a few more moments. And just when he's about to die, they'll pull him out. For 1 second, they will allow him to breathe. Again, they'll put him in. So when he's inside, he's miserable. And when he comes out for that one moment, he's happy. And then again, he's put inside, he's miserable. So that gap between two miseries is called as Sukha. Anytime when you experience happiness which is based on outside things, it will give you what is known as Sukha. When you see a mobile phone on, advertised on a billboard, you find it euphoric. You say, wow, I want this. But the day you buy that phone and get it in your hand, the moment you buy it, gone. You don't feel that excitement anymore. It feels very ordinary. Why? Because it is based on externals, and which is called as Sukha. But happiness, which is very internal, doesn't originate from external sources, but originates from within the heart, is called as Ananda. And that kind of happiness is what Krishna is recommending us to find. Happiness, therefore, is the state of the mind. Just to give you a simple example, when I was in my engineering days, there was a particular point in time where I was sitting with a group of my friends and eating something in the canteen, and suddenly someone came running and said, "Results declared." And we were wondering what happened. And I was told I passed, so I continued eating the samosa. It tasted really nice. But a friend of mine who had failed miserably, he couldn't eat the samosa anymore. For him, the samosa began to taste stale. Now, has the taste of the samosa changed? Not at all. What has changed is the state of the mind. So the Gita says the mind can turn hell into heaven or heaven into hell, depending on how you handle it. Therefore, modern medicine, while it is treating the external symptoms of the problem, it is also important to treat the state of the mind. If the state of the mind is proper, then externally things can be much better. But if the state of the mind is not proper, then no matter how much externally you make things, it is not going to really make a big difference in the overall status of health of a person. Many of us give the remote control of our life to people and situations around us. When we give the remote control of our life to people and situations around us, then we allow others, allow situations around us to influence how we think and what we experience in our life. And therefore, it is very, very important that we as human beings learn to control the situation within us rather than controlling the situation without. The state of mind is so important. And therefore, it is not just the physical quotient that is important, but it's also the emotional quotient. The state of how you think, the way you perceive things is very, very important for one to be happy and for one to be having a healthy state of existence. Let me tell you all a story. The story is about how the mind tricks us, and it tricks us very badly. It tricks us not to be happy when you have every reason to be happy. And it tricks us to be miserable in the middle of all the good things that we have in life. For example, there was a small boy, who wanted a holiday from school. And this boy, in order to get a holiday from school, he played a trick on the school. He came back a little later one day after school hours. And he brought along with him 3 sheep. And he marked the number 1 on the first sheep, number 2 on the second sheep, and number 4 on the third sheep. And he sent the sheep into the school and he went back home. The next day morning, when the cleaners and the staff came, they found that there was sheep litter all over. They ran all around and they found 3 sheep, number 1, number 2, and number 4. And they began to wonder, where is the number 3 sheep that is missing? They ran all around the school to find the number 3 sheep that is missing. And no matter how much they ran around the school to find the number 3 sheep that is missing, they just couldn't find it. They declared an emergency in school, and they declared an emergency holiday, seeing that there was 1 sheep that was missing roaming around in the classrooms. They were trying to search for the number 3 sheep that didn't exist. All of us are exactly like these people. We are not satisfied with the number 1, 2, and 4 that already exists in our life. Somehow we feel happiness lies in the number 3 sheep that is missing in our life. And in the process of trying to find the number 3 sheep that is missing, we forget to enjoy the 1, 2, and 4 that already exists in life. And this is a state of most people's consciousness. And we make ourselves miserable by comparing ourselves with other people. In a world of Instagram and Facebook, everyone is interested in what others are doing. And in the process of comparing themselves with others, they forget what they want to do. They forget who they are, and they don't accept the realities of life. Acceptance makes one emotionally tranquil, and non-acceptance makes one emotionally agitated. There are 2 types of mindsets. One is a victim mindset, and second is a victor mindset. Victim mindset means everything goes wrong with me only. Most people in this world love to talk about their misery. Very little people in this world love to talk about what they're grateful about. There was a man who was very small, and in his younger days, when he was like 18 months old, his father died. And when this boy grew up, his name was Percy Spencer. When he grew up to be about 6 or 7 years old, his mother couldn't raise him because she didn't have enough resources. So she gave him an adoption to her aunt. So this boy grew up with the aunt for a few years. And then when he was about 12 years old, his uncle died. And then this boy was miserable. He didn't have, his mother was not there, his father was not there, and this uncle was supporting him, he died. So this boy at the age of 12 began to work in a mill. He grew up working from the age of 12, literally. And when he was about 19, 20 years of age, he once was working in a radiation laboratory, producing weapons. And one day he walked into his lab wearing a lab suit, a brand new lab suit. And he was working in a very controlled atmosphere and temperature and all. Suddenly he felt in his pant something wet flowing. He looked down and he got the shock of his life to see he had kept a chocolate bar in his pocket. And somehow the chocolate bar had melted, and the whole chocolate messed up his pants so badly. Now, if anybody else was in this guy's place, they would have blamed God. They would have blamed the world. They would have blamed everyone around for how miserable their life is. because everything happens to be wrong only in their life. There's nothing positive and good happening in their life, you know. But Percy Spencer, instead of blaming the world for what he went through, he didn't adopt what is known as a victim mindset. Now, victim mindset means you start thinking that I am a victim of the world and the whole world is trying to push me down. But Percy Spencer adopted what is known as a victor mindset. And Percy had one thought: why did this chocolate melt? He looked around, he studied the temperature, everything was fine, right? Everything was perfectly fine. But still, there was no explanation why the chocolate melted in his pocket. And this man went on to study why the chocolate melted for the next 7 years. And he invented what is known as the microwave oven. For all those of y'all who use a microwave oven, this is the man to thank. And imagine if he had a victim mindset, he would not have thought about it, but he would have been miserable. And that is why it is so important to learn to develop positivity in life, to learn to see everything that happens around us with the right frame of mind, which is what leads to a much greater health, which is what leads to a much better way of living life and a much more beautiful way of living life. This mindset is reflective of all aspects of life, including relationships. To help us achieve this mindset, one has to learn to look at a second definition of success. We began the session by talking about the first definition of success. And if you remember, we said success means what the world thinks about you. That is known as public victory. If you have great cars, if you have great wealth, if you have great bank balance, the world thinks you're successful. But there's a second definition of success, which is known as private victory. Private victory means what you think about yourself. What the world thinks about you is called public victory, and what you think about yourself is called private victory. And if you remember, I also spoke about how rich you are is determined by how many things you have that money can't buy. And all those things that money can't buy fall under this category of private victory. Yes, as I said, yoga means balance. What is it a balance of? Of the many things yoga is a balance of, yoga also is a balance of public victory and private victory. Be successful on an external level, but also try to be successful on an internal level. Try to develop a state of mind that helps you attain balance and peace. And this balance is what these 4 Qs of life are: physical quotient, emotional quotient, intellectual quotient, and spiritual quotient. A person who has the balance of these 4 aspects, these are like 4 wheels of a car. For a car to move in the right direction, the 4 wheels need to be aligned nicely. Even if one of the wheels is not aligned, the car starts tilting, in another direction. Similarly, in our life, when we look at a healthy balance of these 4, physical quotient and intellectual quotient, the world has a lot that it offers. Our entire education system caters to our physical quotient and intellectual quotient. We have sports and physical fitness activities, and then we have so many intellectual activities. But hardly the education system caters to EQ and SQ. If we are not having enough catering towards the EQ and SQ of life, it leads to a very, very miserable balance, and it leads to crisis. I can tell you so many stories of young people that I have been dealing with who are extremely good as far as IQ is concerned, but they're struggling as far as EQ is concerned. What is EQ? EQ is emotional quotient. It refers to your ability to deal with your own emotions and other people's emotions. This is not easy. It is not easy to handle your emotions and other people's emotions unless you are very stable emotionally yourself. And without that, you can't handle any aspect of life, including health. There are so many people who physically are fit, but because they're emotionally weak, they break down so quickly. And then the body also breaks down. On the other hand, those who are emotionally strong, but even if the body is not very fit, the body copes up because the mind is more powerful than the physical itself. And especially when you go through turbulent times in life, and all of us will go through turbulent times in life, this is the time where you need internal security. And as long as you invest time in trying to find a balance in these four aspects of life, especially the EQ and the SQ. As I said, EQ stands for how you deal with your own emotions and other people's emotions. And SQ stands for your character, your value system, your belief systems, your principles. As far as fashion is concerned, flow like a river. But as far as principles of life is concerned, stand steady like a rock. And that is what SQ teaches us. So while we invest so much time, effort, and energy in the PQ and IQ of life, let us remove time like this. Like today, we've been discussing mainly about the EQ and SQ of life. Let us remove time like this to also understand how to develop our EQ and SQ and work on them so that we become balanced individuals, healthy individuals, and successful individuals. Thank you very much. Let's stop here. We can take some questions and discuss.
Thank you, sir.
Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, are we open to questions?
Yeah, whatever Meena ji says.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we have the participants. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. You can raise your hand. I will unmute you, or you can just post questions here in the chat box.
What is the SQ, sir? SQ. Can you give the example? SQ. What do you mean by SQ? And give some example.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your question. SQ stands for spiritual quotient. SQ is actually a stabilizing factor. A lot of the strength that you get for dealing with your emotions, with having a healthy mindset, the strength comes when you have a very strong SQ. Let me give you a simple example to help us understand what SQ is. And as I said, this example is going to be a very it's almost like a analogy, and when I'm explaining this analogy, you will understand what SQ is also. There was an old lady who had a talking parrot, and she loved the talking parrot. And one day, the lady decided to buy a golden cage for this parrot. So she went and bought this beautiful golden cage, and she kept the parrot inside the golden cage. But somehow, she loved the cage more than the parrot. She put the parrot in the cage, and she kept brushing and polishing the beautiful golden cage. And no, how much ever she was polishing it, she was feeling, I need to do a little more. The parrot inside was screaming and yelling for food, for some nourishment. But the lady was so absorbed in that golden cage that she forgot to feed the parrot. And eventually the parrot died. And then the cage became useless. This is exactly the state of all of us. The golden cage represents the body. And the parrot represents the soul, the spirit that we're talking about. There is a need of the body and there's a need of the soul. Just like a car has its need, but the driver has a different set of needs. So while we are addressing the needs of the body very much, which is what PQ and IQ is all about, but we forget to address the needs of the soul, which is what EQ and SQ is all about. And just like we know exactly what it needs to polish this body. I mean, so many creams and so many cosmetics and so many types of spas and so many types of clothes and so much of pampering for the body is done. But how much do we know to pamper the soul, to take care of the soul? Not even pamper, just the basic needs of the soul. Hardly. A session like this, in one sense, is SQ. A session like this, because it helps us understand that the needs of the soul are different from the needs of the body. The needs of something, it's much deeper. And that kind of nourishment is what SQ is all about. So the moment you understand that I have a different set of needs, so the body is considered to be like a car, and the Atma, the soul, is considered to be like a driver, which is what spirituality is all about.
Can you give some ways?
Pardon?
Can you give some ways to polish your spirituality?
Yeah. There are many ways to polish our spirituality. One of the ways is meditation. There are different forms of meditation. There is a meditation on the Paramatma within the heart. There is meditation on a mantra, chanting of the holy names of the Lord. There is meditation on some aspect of spirituality or knowledge, which is what dhyana is. So like that, there are different ways of meditation which are very powerful tools of polishing the SQ. In addition to meditation, knowledge is also a very powerful tool, which is called swadhyaya in spirituality. So when we study scriptures, it actually is a very powerful tool of polishing the SQ, the spiritual needs. When you study any of the scriptures like Gita, any of the scriptures that are very deeply embedded in philosophy, it actually is a very powerful way of nourishing the spiritual quotient. So these are some ways in which we can nourish spirituality.
Thank you, sir.
So, Prabhuji, in day-to-day life, in 24 hours, can we follow some formula to balance all these four aspects?
Yeah. Typically, the way that is recommended is the morning hours are the best for nourishing your spiritual quotient. In fact, it is explained that when you begin your day with a little bit of spiritual practices, it's almost like inoculation, taking a vaccine in the morning. And you take the vaccine, and then you go out, step out of the world, you will be quite protected from the influences of negative energy that comes into your life. So first thing in the morning, you spend some time nourishing your SQ, spiritual quotient. Post nourishing spiritual quotient, then you take care of your PQ, which is what exercise is, which is what eating the right kind of diet is. And then post that, after you take care of your SQ and PQ, then your entire day is divided between your IQ and EQ. IQ is intellectual quotient, is what your whole pursuit, your job, economic development, everything is all about, using your knowledge base that you have. And to enhance IQ, you have to also keep reading. You have to keep upgrading yourself with the right kind of information and knowledge. So you spend a substantial amount of time in the day, investing in what knowledge you have and upgrading your knowledge. And at the same time, you also spend time dealing with human beings. No matter what job you do, ultimately, every single job and every single occupation in this world depends on human beings, depends on how you deal with people. And that's where EQ comes in picture. So the SQ that you develop in the morning, it actually helps you develop the right kind of mood and attitude towards dealing with people in the day. So it's not that thing what you do in the morning is disconnected from what you do across the day. It's very much connected. And that is how the four things acquire a solid balance and of all four run the car of your life.
Prabhuji, thank you. You also quoted from Bhagavad Gita saying that these pleasures have a beginning and end. So the pleasures of material world have a beginning and an end. So what can we do so that our pleasures don't end? Which are those kind of pleasures which don't end?
As I said, I was talking specifically about SQ, which is which leads to Ananda, which is a deep spiritual experience of pleasure which doesn't end.
Danvat Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Prabhuji, hello. Prabhuji, can you elaborate a little bit on the importance of reading scriptures and how they affect our day-to-day life?
Thank you for your question.
You can tell us. Yeah.
So let me give you a very simple analogy to help you understand this. I don't know how many of you all have dealt with threads. Now, sometimes when you have a lot of thread, small thin ropes, basically, they get meshed up and entangled like in a very complicated mess. I'm sure all of you have experienced that, right? And have you ever tried to unentangle those threads? Oh my God, it's the most frustrating thing you can do. You can spend your entire day, but you can't unentangle them, right? The easiest way to unentangle them is take a knife and cut it. That's all. Everything just opens up. So similarly, our mind tends to be highly entangled with so much of confusion and so many complications and so much of chaos. The scriptures are considered to be like a sword. It's called the sword of knowledge. And when you read the scriptures, it just slashes and all those confusions just fall apart and the thread completely opens up. And it actually gives you a higher perspective in life. So reading the scriptures is a very powerful way of changing your perspective of life. It doesn't change your problems. It just changes the way you look at the problems. Let me give you a very simple example from the Ramayana that will help you understand what I'm trying to say. In the Ramayana, there is a section where Ram was going to be exiled to the forest for 14 years. And his stepmother, 𝐒𝐽𝐸, tells Ram that the king wants you to go to the forest for 14 years and be in exile. Ram, when he hears this, I mean, just imagine the situation. Just 1 hour from that point, Ram was going to become the king of Ayodhya. He was really going to become the king of the world. And just 1 hour before he became the king, he is told that he has become a beggar. He used to have nothing. Now, it's a very difficult thing for a human being to process, isn't it? When Ram was given this news, he did something amazing. He looked at 𝐒𝐽𝐸 and smiled. And he told her, "Thank you very much. I've been waiting for such an opportunity. I've been waiting for an opportunity where I can go to the forest and learn from the sages." And he said, these 14 years are not going to be 14 years of exile for me, but they're going to be 14 years of upgradation for me. When an eagle is attacked by a set of crows, the eagle never fights against the crows. The crows are tiny. Eagle is huge and powerful. One hit, the crow can die. But the eagle never fights against the crows. You know what the eagle does? It flies higher. It flies so high that the crows can't reach him only. So the scriptures are exactly this for all of us. The scriptures don't help us solve our problems. They just help us rise so high, look at our problems from such a high elevation that the problems seem insignificant and small. So when we study the scriptures, what we get is vision. And that vision helps us change perspectives and live a much better life.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this very wonderful explanation.
Awesome.
Any
Awesome.
more questions?
Yes, we have. We
Awesome.
have. Yeah, I know. I mean, I would now. We would like to really read the scriptures. Take time out and read the scriptures.
Yes,
Absolutely. Yes, Dr. 𝐴𝐚𝐴 ma'am, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sir. Very excellent lecture. Wonderful beginning of the Sunday. Refresh our minds. Otherwise, we get lazy on Sunday. Sir, my question was about all the quotients you told: EQ, IQ, SQ, and PQ. Whether to achieve success, we need all the quotients in the same degree, or whether one, like emotional quotient, is higher than IQ, the IQ is more than PQ, or whether they need all 25% to make 100% successful.
So these numbers are not really that important, but what is important is investment in all the four. It is natural that some people are more inclined towards SQ, some may be more inclined towards EQ, some may be more inclined towards PQ, some may be more inclined towards IQ. While those inclinations are natural, but the fact that we need all four cannot be denied. So you may be highly inclined towards one over the other, but we need to make sure we invest in the other three also as much, right? So in this, it's not about the number, it's not about how many hours we invest, but it's about the quality. So even if we invest a few minutes in SQ every day, but those few minutes have to be of very high quality. Even if you invest a few minutes in IQ, those few minutes that you invest have to be of very high quality. Same with PQ. Even if you invest a few minutes in PQ, it has to be of very high quality. So I would say that quality is more important than the quantitative aspect, And of course, in some things, quantity also is important. Like for example, you need to sleep for a certain number of hours. No matter, how you might think that I am a Gudakesh, I have conquered sleep and all that, but that doesn't matter. You still have to sleep for, 6 to 7 hours a day minimum, basically. You can't avoid that. So there are some things we have to do it quantitatively, but there are some things we can focus doing it qualitatively.
Because why I ask this question, sir? Because we have seen that in history also, people are intelligent. Because their EQ was very low, they have committed suicide, they have gone for some wrong decision. So I think EQ should be powerful than all others. I think so. Our mind should be stronger than any other emotion.
Absolutely. See, the reality is that SQ and EQ drive human society. They drive human society very powerfully in the right direction and even in the wrong direction, if not, properly developed. Yes. So in that sense, from a importance point of view, EQ and SQ have a greater relevance and importance than IQ and PQ. And more importantly, what happens is society has already understood the value of PQ and IQ, but it has not really understood the value of EQ and SQ, which is why that has to be emphasized even more today than ever in the past.
Need of the modern society, rather. Need of the current.
Absolutely. In fact, the older society, especially if you look at India, maybe 1,000 years before, it was primarily driven by SQ and EQ. Primarily driven by that, So people were always people-centric than project-centric. And because it was people-centric, projects thrived. But today, if you look at modern India, it is more project-centric than people-centric. And because projects are, it's project-centric, you don't care for human beings. And therefore, eventually projects suffer also.
Absolutely.
And Prabhuji, how can we lead the young generation towards spirituality? How can we inculcate these EQ and SQ right from the beginning in the younger generation? I mean, that guidance would really help.
In my experience, youngsters need what is known as samvad. Samvad means dialogues. Youngsters have a lot of questions. I've seen every single youngster that I have interacted with, they have questions and they think a lot. Unfortunately, when they go to their parents and ask those questions, the parents shoot them down. They say, you just believe, just have faith, It doesn't work for youngsters like that. So unless and until you allow platforms for youngsters to come and ask questions and discuss, you will not find them being inclined towards spirituality. A young mind will accept spirituality or any form of awareness, and only when they are convinced about it. So the good part in youngsters is that they are very informed, very well informed, and also they're very inquisitive. The bad part is that they get information from the wrong sources and they don't get answers to their questions. So if you can somehow bring both of this together, you'll find a solution to a lot of youngsters' problems.
No, it's not about problems. I was trying to find out that how can you dedicatedly develop these two quotients.
As I said, the way to help them develop it is through samvad. Samvad means discussion.
Communication. Yes, discussion. Okay.
Discussions. It's not communication. It's not a one-way communication. It's a discussion. They need to ask and you need to answer logically.
Answer them. Thank you.
So there's a question in the chat box here. What is the easiest way to recognize your true self? A very deep question, I guess. The easiest way to recognize your true self, I mean.
Okay. So there is a course that I do. It's called the Journey of Self-Discovery. It's a very powerful course. It's a 6-session course on Bhagavad Gita. For anyone who is interested in understanding and knowing the entire Bhagavad Gita in essence, Here is the course I highly recommend. I can send you all the audio links of the entire course. It will take you about 12 hours of investment. If anyone is interested in hearing this course, I will be more than happy to share the audio. I can send it to Sunita ji and she can share it with all of you all. This course has one session. The day 3 of this course is called Who Am I? And this is the answer to your question. It's a 2-hour discussion on understanding yourself well. So I'll just quickly tell you all what the 6 sessions are about so that you know what is there in it. The first session is called the Search for Happiness. We're all searching for happiness, but we don't know where happiness lies. We don't know what really is happiness. So the first session is called the Search for Happiness. It will help us understand how to get lasting happiness. The second session is called as Does God Exist? Logically and systematically trying to prove the existence or non-existence of God. It's a very powerful session and a very logical session. The third session is called as Who Am I? It's a session that is a very powerfully introspective session. It helps us understand the greater and deeper imports of why we are here in this world and what our real identity is. The fourth session is called as One God or Many Gods. India is a market house of gods. Every second day we find a new god coming up. So this session talks about who really God is. And the fifth session is called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? This is something that is, of course, today the opposite is even more relevant. Why do good things happen to bad people? So people are really interested in knowing, why bad things happen to them in spite of doing all the good things in life. This is a very powerful session that talks about the law of karma. So, of course, you can't come to this session unless you hear the first 4, properly. Yes. And you can't come to the third one unless you hear the first 2 properly, So they all interlinked together. And the last session is called Practical Application of Gita in Daily Life. So if any of you are interested in these 6 sessions, please, do let us know and we will make sure that you get the links of all these 6 sessions.
So we have many who are putting in the chat box that they're interested in the link. So if you could share the link in the chat box here itself, I'm sure it'll be nice for all of us. And sir, there's one question which has come up as to what is tips for internal security. Can you please suggest some few tips for internal security?
Okay, let me give you a simple example of what I mean by internal security. Everything in this world is changing, isn't it? Every single thing in this world changes. And in a world which is filled with so much change and in a world that is filled with so much turbulence, in a world that is filled with so much of chaos, and in a world that is filled with so much of disturbance, how does one really stay stable? Let's take the example of a tornado or a cyclone. When you are in a cyclone, a cyclonic situation, what can you hold on to that will prevent you from flying away? Can you hold on to your mobile phone? No. If you hold on to the phone, you will fly with the phone. Can you hold on to your car? Many times, no, the car also flies along, So what do we hold on to? We need to hold on to something that is embedded deeply in the ground. Something that is solidly embedded in the ground, and you hold on to that thing. That won't fly, and therefore you won't fly. So a lot of people in this world, they hold on to things that change constantly. People hold on to their beauty, changes constantly. People hold on to stock markets, changes constantly. People hold on to currency and money, it changes constantly. Suddenly Notebandi is declared and what you have is no more of any use. So people hold on to things that are transient and changing. But when you hold on to something that never changes, then you get something what is powerfully secure. Just to give you a simple example, you keep 7 photos of yours at different ages. A child, a baby, 5 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. You keep all the photos in front of you. Apparently, in all those photos, the person is the same. But externally, the person has changed totally, isn't it? But there is something inside us that has never changed. That's why you still feel those experiences that you had in your childhood, because something inside you has never changed. When you hold on to something that is deep inside you that never changes, that's when you get a sense of security. And that thing that never changes, there are 2 things that never change. One is the fact that you are a soul, the Atma, and that fact never changes. And the second thing is your connection with the Paramatma, the connection with God. These are 2 things that never ever change. And when you hold on to these 2 things, externally everything is going to change. Every single thing is going to change. But if you hold on to anything that changes, you will not be able to feel security. And therefore, spirituality is the process of finding that thing that never changes and latching onto that. I hope that made sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a wonderful explanation. Just,
I'm
going from the external world, go within. I think that was where your internal security lies, within you yourself.
Please
Absolutely.
ask anybody.
I have just dropped the link for the journey of self-discovery.
Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
There is one more question here, and on how do you help, especially youngsters, or how do we help us also to develop a emotional quotient on the EQ?
Uh,
I think that's one of the last questions which we have here right now. How do you develop emotional quotient?
Emotional quotient begins with self-awareness. In fact, I'm actually going to do an entire course on developing emotional quotient, starting from 1st July, a 5-session course. And I will eventually send you all that, the course also. So basically, it starts with self-awareness. Unfortunately, a lot of us, we are not even aware of our own emotions. Because we are not aware of our emotions, how can we become aware of other people's emotions? So self-awareness is the beginning of emotional quotient development. A person who is very, very aware of his own emotions eventually becomes sensitive towards the emotions of others. But a person who remains at that level of only looking at his own emotions as important and not caring for other people's emotions, he becomes selfish. So being self-aware is the first step. But after that, one has to transcend, go higher, and develop what is known as awareness of other people. It's called as first janma sartha karo paropakar. That means first you create stability in your own personal life, and then you create stability in other people's lives. So emotional quotient development comes first with self-awareness, understanding yourself, accepting your emotions, accepting your realities, being comfortable with your own realities, and then trying to accept other people. So when we say I tolerate you, it means I hate you, but I'm somehow tolerating you. But we need to go from tolerate to accept, from accept to respect, from respect to appreciate, and from appreciate to celebrate other people's emotions. And that's when you actually become a very complete human being.
Absolutely. Yes. So it's like being the empathy. Empathy is the same as what you're trying to say? Empathy?
Yeah. So I'm saying first empathize with yourself.
Okay.
Then you empathize with others.
Right.
It's like filling up your own well first, and then you give water to others.
Absolutely. Yes. A beggar cannot give alms to others. We have to be fulfilled ourselves. Absolutely.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead, man.
Can you send the link again?
Sir, can you please post that link again?
Yeah, sure.
Hello? Hello?
Hi,
Yes.
yes. Please go ahead with the question.
Ma'am, you can type the question if you're not able to connect.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes,
No.
yes.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Please
please.
go ahead.
Yeah, as you said, the younger generation to discuss with them, but they never sit with you or talk to you, or they think they are perfect and we are fools to teach them wrong things. How to discuss, and isn't it? Isn't it? They don't even talk to you normally about spirituality. They never will ever sit with you and discuss with you or ask a question. How do we impress upon them about this?
So, ma'am, I have a very interesting way of dealing with youngsters. I mean, encouraging youngsters to speak up. I take them on a trek. We climb mountains together. And while we are walking up a mountain, they end up asking me a lot of questions, actually.
No, but never on the spirituality.
Yeah.
And
So the point is, all I'm trying to say is simple, ma'am. What I'm trying to say is that for a youngster to open up to any of us, it doesn't matter whom it is. It's not only about me. It's about anyone, you know. For a youngster to open up to anybody, they need an environment that is conducive for their mood. Of course, different youngsters have different beliefs and different ways of thinking, basically. So we need to understand what their need is. And first, give them what they need. And then they'll give us what we need. So it's almost like a barter system, you know. So what I try my best to do is I try to create a good environment for them. And in that environment, they end up opening up a lot to me. And I'm sure that works for everybody also, you know. So my humble suggestion to you would be is that find out what their need is and what environment makes them most inspired. Create that environment and a lot will change. A lot will change.
Absolutely. We have to make the soil fertile for them to sprout.
yes, yes. Oh, that's true.
Prabhuji, we need some link of your for your books also, please. If you could share on this
Yes.
platform,
Yes.
then we'll be very happy
I'm
because
just sharing an Amazon link of all my books.
any questions? Anybody else? I think we are done. We've really understood the topic very well, and we've taken home many you can say enlightening messages. And Prabhuji, we would like to learn more from you in the times to come. And so I thank Dr. Sunita Shirsagar for introducing us to you. I thank you, Prabhuji, for being here on this Sunday morning and sharing your knowledge points with all of us and helping us understand a very basic thing, that health is just a balance of all these quotients in the right moment, in the right time, and putting them into use. So please mute yourself. So thank you, Prabhuji, for being here and for guiding us, for enlightening us with your knowledge. Dr. Sunita, would you like to say something?
I just want to sincerely thank Prabhuji for his wonderful sessions. I've always been, I never miss his sessions at any time. I have learned my Bhagavad Gita with him. I'm relearning Bhagavad Gita with him again. I've learned my Ramayana with him. I've read his Ramayana, and I recommend, highly recommend everybody that you should read the Ramayana series that he has written, because it just expresses how you deal with, how you sort of correlate with the situations in Ramayana in your day-to-day life. So I recommend that. There's another very wonderful book that I really enjoy reading, Prabhuji's, is your Open-Eyed Meditation. That's something, day-to-day living, how you understand. So please, everybody, go through the PDF that Prabhuji has sent. And he's so kind that he has also shared the link for the Journey of Discovery course. I hope we get to hear from him more than, directly. let's see how we can work it out.
Absolutely.
So thank you once again, Prabhuji. Thank you, extreme thanks to you from our side, from Maharashtra State. I'm in Maharashtra State, and from all the audience who is there today. I hope those who have not been able to listen, we will share your link with them. And thank you so much for your valuable wisdom, your valuable time with us. We really enjoyed. We really enjoyed, and I think everybody is leaving this session enlightened and enriched. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you,
It's been a
Prabhuji.
pleasure
Thank
and
you.
honor to be with all of you all.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. And
Yes.
I'm sure, Prabhuji, we are going to trouble you more often.
Yes, we would like to learn
This is
more.
decided. Yeah, we like to learn more. This is
And I
decided.
I
Yeah.
thank 𝐼𝐚𝐴 Maharashtra State President Pingle sir for giving us this platform, to be connecting with our members on this spiritual journey together, from intellect to experience. That is what we've named our spiritual journey. So in this journey, my dear friends, we are coming up with the Yoga Week celebration, which will be there starting from 12th of June to 21st of June, which ends on the Yoga Day celebration, that is on 21st of June. So you stay connected with us. We will be sharing messages on the groups also, and all through emails. Plus, we have a spiritual conference of 𝐼𝐚𝐴 Maharashtra State, which will be coming up and planned for 17th of July. So, dear members, stay connected with the spiritual subcommittee 𝐼𝐚𝐴 Maharashtra State. I'm Dr. Meena Pruthi, you're the chairperson. Saying goodbye to you. Have a lovely day and a lovely evening today
Yeah.
with family and friends. And do ponder on the knowledge which we have learned today. Thank you, Prabhuji.
And please
Thank you.
share your feedback. Please share your
Yes.
feedback
Please
also.
share your
We would
feedback
love
on the
to hear your
groups.
feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Meena.
much. Namaste.
Thank you, Meena. Thank you, Dr. Pingle. Thank you, IMA State,
Thank you.
Maharashtra State. Thank you so much. Shall we leave? Shall
Yes,
we leave?
I'll stop the recording now.